Hey, everybody, welcome to Quest for Peace. I'm Iyaz Akhtar. If you don't know anything about this show, and I basically lead off every episode this way, so if you're watching this episode and you've seen the rest, you already know this part, so you can skip till you see our guest today. But if you've never seen this show, I'd like to explain it. It's about trying to be happy, trying to find inner peace and some kind of inner calmness. Now, I am not there yet. I'm not 100% happy. I still have flare ups of just unreasonable anger at this age of 34. And on this show, I share the stuff I've tried that has actually helped me out, the stuff I've tried that hasn't helped me out. And then if I'm lucky, I have a guest on and I ask them, hey, what do you do to be happy? What do you do to handle all your stresses in your life? And today we've got Shannon Morse, one of my old coworkers from the old days back in like 1945. I think we used to work together on an assembly line. Shannon Morse, how are you doing?
I am doing lovely. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I don't have a cat. I have a dog in the other room. But if people
Yeah,
don't
she
know
keeps
you,
on bothering me. I'm like, get away from the microphone. Here, I'll hold her. Hopefully she doesn't meow too loud. Sorry,
I
guys.
like that. I like that. That's you bothered. You like have a smile
Oh,
on your face as you're holding a cat. If people don't know who you are, and they're like, okay, Shannon Morse. I don't know her from this other person, Shannon Schorsch. Let's say that person. You don't know who that person is. Can you explain who you are to folks?
God, Shannon Shore. She always gets the .com before I get it. Oh, I hate her. I hate that girl. So I do a lot of podcasts on the internet. I am a host and a producer of several shows, including Techzilla on Discovery Digital Media. I also do Hack 5 at hak5.org, and I work with Twit on Coding 101. So all over the place.
All over the place. And you are one of the happiest people I've ever met. I used to work with Shannon directly. She used to be my producer on Know How. Before that, we were just colleagues. We were friends way back at CES. I don't know, 3-4 years ago now, maybe it's even 5. It's been a long
Yeah,
freaking
I'm
time.
sure.
And
I think
so
I was very drunk the first time you met me.
I think that was actually the second time I met you. The first time I met you that day, you were pretty cool, but the second time you were hammered, and for some reason I wasn't, which is a very unusual occurrence for me in Las Vegas. But anyway, that's we can trade stories like that some other time. But so you've known how stressed I've been in the past as my old producer. You not old producer, former producer, because you're not that old. Um,
So
you know,
old.
I have seen you handle stress really easily, and I have no idea how you are capable of doing that. Do you have any tips or tricks that you use when a situation gets really stressful in the course of a day that you fall back on to let yourself properly assess the situation instead of being an emotional reaction? Because an emotional reaction can totally turn into a disaster.
I completely agree. There have been several times where I've dealt with people who have emotional reactions to stress, and they will just yell at people on the spot, or they'll fire you on the spot, or whatever might happen because they're just freaking out. For me, if there are like several people talking to me at one time, or if there's something blows up at work, I just have to sit back and I have to I try to blank everything out. I try to make everything quiet for a moment so I can just think to myself, okay, how can I fix this situation? How can I make it work okay? And I tell everybody, okay, it's all right. We can fix this. One person needs to solve this situation, not three. So I will sit back and I will think to myself about that. I'll make myself a task list if I need to. One thing that really helps me is not to try and get everything done at one time, because that'll totally freak me out and stress me out and make me feel like, everything's going to hit the fan. So I'll go through my list and think to myself, okay, what things need to take priority right now to get them done and solve the situation? And I'll get those things done however it needs to get finished. After that, I will simply go through the rest of the task list and get everything done as it comes. Hopefully, nothing else happens during that space of time where I'm trying to get through my entire task list. But if it does happen, I'll add it to the bottom of my list and hopefully finish everything in time and meet all my deadlines.
But that requires you to have an immediate perspective as to knowing that a response of an emotional nature will not be the best. How do you get
It
to that
does.
first?
It does. It definitely requires, knowing that you shouldn't freak out at any minute. For me, I just I try to take a few minutes. I try to count to 10. I breathe in and out really like several times. And I try to take deep breaths and just sit there and okay, this isn't the end of my life. This isn't going to affect me tomorrow. Tomorrow's a new day. And I just try to smile to myself and stay happy in any situation. I've noticed a lot of times, like, especially if I'm, like when I used to manage a restaurant, if something blows up and the person who's on duty, who is managing a bunch of other people, this is especially useful in a workplace. I've noticed if the manager gets upset and starts having an emotional reaction, everybody else does too. So I think to myself, if I have an emotional reaction to something, my entire crew is going to, have a horrible day. Everything's going to go wrong for them, and then nothing's going to get done. So I have to sit there and I just go, okay, I'm ready. Let's make this happen. Just lots of breathing and lots of smiling and just staying positive with everything that's going on.
Staying positive. Okay, so now you're not exactly known as a sarcastic person. So
No.
when I do what you would be doing, which is smile, breathe, and do that thing, people think I'm becoming infuriated, even when I'm trying to calm down, which then causes me to get increasingly angry because they're saying, "Why are you so mad?" Now, why? I'm going to keep asking you why. Why are you so positive to start with? I mean, what was your upbringing like that you have this idea that you can just simply pull yourself out of the situation, give yourself a second, because a lot of people sometimes want to jump in again immediately, or they want to fix the solution, fix the problem right away without really giving a full thought. Did your upbringing help that? Did you read a lot of books? How did you end up this calm?
I think my upbringing did help in this situation. My dad was in the military, so we moved around a lot, and that naturally brings a lot of stress to a family. Just because there's expenses, you have to buy new things, and then you have to move and meet new people. For me, I never had friends longer than 4 years before I moved off to a new place, and this is before Facebook, so there was no way to contact people after you moved on and you lost their phone number or their address or they moved. So he was military. So I had to deal with, finding a way to make friends quickly that would last for a long time so I wouldn't be a loner every time I moved around. For me, it helped to, walk over to a person's house, knock on their front door and say, "Hi, do you have any girls that are 8 years old?" And this is like when I was an 8-year-old kid, and they'd be like, "Yes" or "No," and I'd say, can they come out and play with me?" So they would come out and hang out with me, and everything would be good. So it was one way for me to, smile and meet new people and just be friendly. So being friendly really helped me when I was growing up, just to, make friends and stay positive every time I moved around. My mother, she moved around with us, but she was a Southern woman. So, she grew up in a very Southern atmosphere in North Carolina. But one of the things about Southern women that I've noticed is every time they talk to somebody, they get this natural higher voice, and they get so peppy and happy, and they just walk around and go, "Hey y'all, hey everybody, you want some sweet tea?" And they just want to make friends with everyone. So I feel like my mom and dad really help motivate me to be a happy person and to stay positive, even though like sometimes, you don't have any friends or you might feel depressed. And I think that really helped me, especially getting into high school and now moving out here and only having friends through my work. It just helped me stay happy. So yeah, I think it really helped me.
Okay, well let's ask you this. All right, so this is fun because now it's
I
like
never read any books. Never
you
did
don't
any
read books on
books
this.
or no motivational ebooks, no Audible books, nothing like that. Yeah, it was never any of that kind of stuff. It was just like I really thank my mom and dad for making me a happy person.
So no meditation for you, no yoga, no like things that are like you get centered every day. This is just built in.
No. I think one thing that really helps me too is like having cats, which is nice, and also having hobbies. Something that keeps me motivated to finish tasks because I'm a very task-based person. I really like to have something to do and not ever sit in one place. I'm very energetic, and I like to move around and get things done. So it helps me to have a lot of hobbies as well. So I do like I'm couponing and scrapbooking and I'm planning my wedding and I try to make everything perfect. I would say though, trying to make everything perfect definitely hurts my optimism a lot of times.
So you're talking about your wedding planning because that requires making
Yeah.
everyone happy. In the past couple of weeks, I haven't mentioned this. I've only mentioned this like a billion times on this program, but a lot of folks don't know this yet. I've been looking to find an apartment in Manhattan, and I finally got approved on Friday. I've got a lease
Yay.
sitting in the other room that I have to sign and send out some checks and things. And when I had this stress lift, that's what it felt like because I'd been planning and trying to make everyone happy because the deal did not go as smoothly as I would like it to do, like I wanted it to, and required making everyone happy, anyone who's involved. So I had needs, Liz had needs in the place, the dogs have an idea, there needs to be safety. My brother had to go out to actually look at the places because it's in New York, and I can't just go out every couple minutes. So I had to make sure they were happy with me. My mom was involved, so lots of people every single time. Not as stressful as a wedding, though. So are you trying to make that go perfect? Is that driving you a little bit on edge?
It is, yeah. The past few months have been very stressful, and I think that any bride would be able to say the same thing. The last few months are stressful, and it's very hard to make sure that everything goes right. There will be instances where things go wrong. For example, one of my bridesmaids dropped out 3 months ago. She had already purchased a dress. It was almost too late for me to get another girl to step in and take her place. You know, a lot of people say, oh, it's no big deal, just have an uneven amount of people. But for me, imagining my wedding day without her there, one of my best friends for a long time, it just hurt. It was very upsetting for me. So I had to deal with that stressful situation by just, I stopped and I had to look at the situation and say, okay, what would work best for me? When that happened, I decided to take my cat and dump him off the desk. When that happened, I decided to, I talked to my fiance a lot about it. And I just said, you know, hey, this is what's going on. What do you think I should do? Because sometimes it does help to have some kind of external decisions, you know, helping you make your own decision. You know, it helps you think out of the box. So I talked to my fiance about it, and I talked to the girl who I was considering having her fill her place. And I was like, you know, is this something you'd consider doing? I don't know if it would work out correctly, given that, you know, dresses have to be ordered by a certain time frame for them to come in time for a wedding, bridesmaid dresses, that is. But it all seemed to work out just fine eventually. And that's just one of the many stressful situations you're going to deal with. You're going to deal with, like, you know, guests inviting extra plus ones, or if you don't want to have kids at your wedding, there might be people that say, oh, well, I have a baby. Do you want to make that exception? You know, you might hurt other people if you tell them no kids, but you might, you know, make them happy if you decide to have tons of kids at your wedding. So there's a lot of instances where you just get stressed out. And whenever that happens to me, I need to ask for help. I just need to ask for, you know, other opinions and sometimes physical help, you know, with physical decorations or whatever I have, or somebody actually taking care of a meeting or calling a vendor, what have you. It's very hard to do a wedding. If you can afford it, I would say hire a wedding planner. But if you can't, you could definitely do it on your own. Just, you know, plan ahead, make sure that you prioritize everything, and don't get behind schedule on any of the things you have to do. It's hard.
Let's move on to something that so somebody in the chat room saying Shannon's too chipper, I can't relate, or too happy. And I've seen a side of you where you're not super happy, and usually you've seen me react the same way. It's about the subject of trolls. Now, for the
Oh,
most part,
yay.
yeah, trolls, because you deal with a whole set of other criticisms that basically are unwarranted. I know in my experience when it came to criticisms, it was you talk too fast or whatever, or your points are ridiculous, or you're an Apple fanboy, or you're a Microsoft fanboy, or whatever the heck I was saying that day. And one of the things that Tom Merritt told me a long time ago, when I'd be looking at emails or whatever, he goes, well, is there anything of here that's like that actually has value? And I was like, well, this guy's being a total jerk. He's like, no, read it again. And I'm like, oh, this one thing we could actually work on. I'm like, okay, this is a really critical eye and looking at what looks to be a complete trolling kind of comment, how do you handle trolls? Because I mean, their whole point is to get a rise out of you.
Oh my gosh, that is such a good question. I've been dealing with trolls since I started on Hack 5 in 2008, and a lot of it is just because, oh, I'm a female and I do a hacker show, or oh, I am too pretty to be a geek, obviously, because girls can't be pretty and be a geek at the same time. Or it's because well, yeah, usually it's just because I'm a female. For the past, I would say 4 or 5 years since 2008. Actually, it has been, yeah, about 4 years. It took me to actually get to the point where I was confident in myself, and a lot of times that confidence would get bashed down because of what trolls would say on the internet, and a lot of times it was, YouTube comments. It was never really emails. And sometimes it would be people in chat rooms and things like that whenever we were recording live. Usually what I would have to do is look at the comments, and I would talk to one of my male friends about it, because, a lot of my dude friends also do podcasts like you, Iyaz. So I would discuss it with them and say, this guy said that I shouldn't be on the show because I'm just a talking head. Like, what should I do about this? And they would look at me and say, well, are you a talking head? And I'd say, no, I write my own segments. I do my own research. Everything that I talk about on Hack 5, I've learned myself. Like, this doesn't make any sense. And they would say, well, do you think the troll has an issue with his own life that might be affecting how he treats others? When you hear that from somebody else, when they tell you, hey, maybe it's just a problem that they have in their own life that just makes them so angry that they want to take it out on somebody else. When somebody tells you that, it brings to light this entirely new vision for you. It made me feel like you're right. There's nothing wrong with me that I can't fix. I can always fix, the way I talk on a podcast or the way that I present myself. I can hold myself better, physically or mentally. So it really helped to hear somebody else say, this guy obviously has an issue with his own life. And that was about it.
Okay. I mean, I know a lot of folks who are, if you're listening to this show or you're watching it and you're like, okay, well, I don't have trolls in my life and people aren't trying to tear me down. There's a lot of folks that I've had in the old days, friends even, who are like, oh, you shouldn't be going into that path. You should be trying to, be a lawyer, do this, do this other thing. You're much more qualified to do this. You can go into that kind of profession, and it might not be the exact same kind of things that we're talking about now, but sometimes there are people out there trying to tear you down for no reason. And this idea of trying to think about their perspective, that's also another reason why I've been able to calm down in my old age. This perspective of, wait a second. All right, this person, are they really trying to be a jerk? Or are they trying to be helpful? Or is there some kind of bizarre motivation that I'm not seeing? Give myself a chance to understand that. And what you're talking about sounds like a lot of sense, this idea of putting yourself in another person's situation to go, wait, what's causing them to do this? And should I get hurt by this? How did you build that confidence based on that? Because if you're taking all these dings, it seems like building your confidence along the way would cause what would be slowed down a lot.
For me, I just couldn't hold it in. I had to talk to other people about it. And this was everyone from from some of my girlfriends who also do podcasting, but they've done it for years longer, to some of my dude friends like you, who I've discussed, trolls with before. It really, really helped for me to just not let it sit inside of me and boil up into a big thing where I blew up and eventually just cried and quit my job. For me, it was just involving myself with other people and, asking for opinions and talking to them and just saying hey, this is what's happening in my life. Is there a way to fix this? Or is this something I should involve myself with? My cat's just freaked out. So it was tough for me, very tough at first for a lot of times, because I didn't want to bring up the situation with people. I would just, hold it inside and say, oh my gosh, this guy, he totally dug into me because my manicure wasn't that pretty. But now if I talk to one of my friends about it and say this guy told me my manicure sucked, he'd just be like, well, did you tell him that, you really can't afford to get a manicure every single day? And I'd be like, well, no. And he'd be like, well, obviously he has some other issues involved. Maybe he should pay for it. So it really helped me to talk to people. It either helped me in the sense that it made me laugh, because sometimes you guys would tell me jokes and I'd be like, okay, you're right. All right. It's nothing to worry about. Or it would just make me feel more positive about myself because, like, one of my co hosts, he always tells me that I'm good at my job. He's like, I've seen you do this stuff for years. You know what you're doing. You've learned so much since you started on the show. Keep going. And that really helps me. Yeah.
Let's talk about dream chasing, because we are in professions that I think we're both very satisfied with. Like right now, I work at CNET. I'm pretty happy there. They let me do pretty much anything I want. As long as I'm doing my actual
Yes.
job, I can do videos. I'm writing stuff. I'm having a great time there. Really
I
supportive
love my
team.
job.
Yeah. So let me ask you about that, because a lot of folks, they choose not to pursue their dreams because they might fail. Now, what made you pursue the dream of? I think this is a weird thing, because when I was a kid, this wasn't a dream yet. Like I wanted to be online. Like no, I had some interest in audio and video, but not like
This
internet
didn't
video
even
because it wasn't
exist when we were kids.
exactly. So how did you go about? Well, I guess discovering your passion and then following it to this point, because this is something that people are afraid of trying because they could fail.
When I was little, I was very involved with my dad as far as tech goes and sci-fi and things like that. My dad taught me how to build computers from a very young age. He even had a computer in my nursery when I was little. So I would sit on his lap and he would teach me how to play solitaire and things like that, Minesweeper, just old video games. So from there, him teaching me how to build computers, and then him teaching me about different things like, how to tell a gigabyte from a terabyte, and what is a bit, what is a byte, just very informational technical skills that you don't really get when you're in middle school. He taught me, and it just made me sit there and go, oh my gosh, you can do all of this with a monitor, a tower, a mouse, and a keyboard in front of you. Like there's a world inside of these cables and cords that you can get involved with, and you can learn so much from it. So I got really excited about it. On the other side, my mom was very involved with me growing up, trying to get me involved with everything that I enjoyed in school. She noticed that I like to sing and I like to, have fun in front of a camera. So she asked me if I wanted to be involved with a middle school show. I have pictures from this. They aren't online, but it was Wizard of Oz. So I ended up being a munchkin in Wizard of Oz at our high school theater whenever they wanted, little kids to play in this high school theater show. So after that, I figured out that I really enjoy entertaining. So I got involved in choir, got involved in theater. And then at home, when I went home, I was also involved with my dad, learning how to build computers and also build websites. I learned a lot about HTML and things like that. And then eventually in college, I learned that there's this thing called podcasting. And I was like, oh, that's cool. What do you do? Oh, it's like TV shows on the internet. So that's what I tell everybody, especially my mom, who doesn't really understand what podcasts are. It's a TV show on the internet, Mom. So I found out about this thing called podcasting, and I decided, you know what? I enjoy entertainment and I enjoy all sorts of dorky, geeky tech things. So why don't I take those two things that I love in life and stick them together, kind of just, super glue them together and mix it up and turn it into my own show. So then I got involved with Hack 5, which turned out to be a complete life changer for me. I ended up moving out here to San Francisco. I ended up getting involved with 2 other networks, and now I'm doing it full time. So it feels to me like it was all just meant to be. Like it all just kind of pulled together and happened. And now I'm working at a dream job for myself. This is really something that I could see myself doing for years and years. I love it.
So you seem very happy. You got the stress
I
of a
get so
wedding.
excited.
See, that's the thing. Like, I think that the amount of hours a person spends doing whatever the heck it is, so if it's going to be your hobby, your job, your friendships, your relationships, if you're not happy with any part of that, it's going to be miserable. And the most amount of time we spend usually as normal people is at a job. Usually it's about
Yes.
8 hours. They usually have like, okay, you have to be here from this time to that time. Not like a relationship or friendships where you're like, oh no, we must meet every day at this time. You're doing this particular thing all day, every day for the majority of your life. And if you hate that job, uh, it just makes it miserable. And that just trickles down into the rest of your life. Brian Brushwood and I were talking about this last time. And he was talking about how if you don't, he was thinking about this as in like video game energy bars. And the idea is if you are running out of health meter in jobs, you'll take it from your relationships. And so basically, when you come back to your relationship, you're completely spent. And that's how I felt in the past, where when I was unhappy at my job, and we'll talk about that one day. When I was unhappy at my job, I was not happy everywhere because that's how I identified myself. I was like, okay, if I'm not happy here, now what the hell do I do? And that's kind of a big thing. So the idea of chasing dreams, even in spite of this of trolls and bizarreness that happens, that seems to, I think, help a lot. Find for me as well, finding some
Yes,
kind
it
of
does.
peace. Because so you don't consider yourself an intense person, do you?
No,
Not
I'm very
intense,
giggly. I'm very bubbly and boisterous and excited, and I'm very happy.
but you're very
Not very
goal.
intense.
You're goal driven though. Like so, if like you have this idea of like, okay, I'm gonna go be an extreme couponer today, and I'm gonna be really good at this. So you're
Yes.
obviously driven to do stuff. So I'm just curious, how do you you're striving to get better at lots of things all the time. You must get frustrated. How do you handle the frustrations of failure?
Oh man. Um, I try to find some other motivational opportunity that makes it into a good thing. Here's a great example. I was recently let go of one of the podcasts that I do. I was told that I was not a good fit for the show, so they let me go. At first, I was very upset. I felt like it wasn't fair. I felt like I was hurt. You know, I felt like I did something wrong and I didn't understand why. But as soon as I went home, I sat down and I had a beer. Probably not a good thing to do when you're stressed out, but I did have a beer. I did it. I went home, I had a beer, and I I decided, you know what? This means I have a free day during my week that I could be doing another show on. And I know that there's another network out there that wants me to do more shows. So why don't I talk to them about some of my obsessions, whether it's anime, video games, or extreme couponing, and see if it's something that they would want me to do. So as soon as I looked at that one failure and said to myself, how can I make this something that works for me? How can I make this happen? I I was happy again. I was like, you know what? This is going to be a good thing. This is a good thing for me. So here I am, optimistic again.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because you had a basically a challenge and you turned it into an opportunity. And this was something I had read about. So you don't read any of these motivational stuff. I end up reading lots of blogs, self help stuff, because I this is what I do. I just enjoy that stuff, try to figure out how to improve. And one of the things they talked about with people who are generally happy is that they find the opportunity in challenges. And that's exactly what you did. And so this is kind of interesting because in the course of this program, I've had a bunch of guests and they have been saying similar things. Now, while they don't do it with as big a smile on their face as you do, they have the same ideas. And I'm noticing a pattern of this is what makes things what makes people generally happier is if you look at a challenge and something just sucks, like getting booted off of a show, I think that would piss off anybody. Or like you're
Mhm.
being taken off of one of your tasks, that would be really irritating, especially when you believe that you are
Yes.
damn good at it. So it's a really silly idea that this happens. And then you go, okay, wait a second. That sucked, but that's over. Now what do I do? And I can do pretty much anything I want. So this idea of turning a challenge into an opportunity, I'm starting to realize on this program that I need to start doing that a lot more. I I've I I've been trying to I've been so busy in the past couple of weeks with the whole coordination of apartment hunting cross country
Yes.
and work and commuting and just trying to exist in the course of the day that I haven't had any time to be like, what's happening? I've had no time for like reflection. And even though I'm on the bus, I'm falling asleep. So I don't even have time anymore for that. I'm looking forward to that. So folks, if you're listening to this program, you're like, hey, what's the best idea so far for finding some kind of goodness in something that's happened that's bad? Just think this can be an opportunity. This could be something huge one day. So you got Keith in the
Yes.
background. People don't know. the back of his head is on this show. Um, how,
He's
how do
playing
you
video
handle
games.
how do you handle relationship stress? And if that's too personal, you don't have to answer that because I can go into my own stories, but I've asked a couple of guests before.
No, it's totally fine. I actually just recently gave my friend some of my own opinions on her relationship because she was asking for them, and she was going through a fight and she almost left her boyfriend. Um, I I told her to be open. There's so many times that I've seen relationships and even my own relationships, and this has taken me years to do, where people just hold all of their feelings inside and they can't tell their significant other how they feel. I'm still kind of trying to do that better because a lot of times I can't put my feelings into words. Either I don't know why I feel the way I do, or I just don't want to say it because I'm embarrassed or something like that. Yeah, it sounds silly, but it happens, and it happens to almost every relationship I know of. You just have to converse with your significant other and be open, tell them how you're feeling. If you need a hug, tell them that you need a hug. That's the biggest thing for me, is just, being there for each other and being open.
This reminds me of a story. This little incident like kind of changed the way I approached people. One day I came into work and I was going to be my normal sarcastic self. Tom walks in. He goes, "Be nice to me. I'm feeling old." And I thought for a
Aw.
second. I was like, "Okay, I will do that." And I was just like kind of shocked by the directness of somebody I know and respect, just literally asking me to be nice to him because I had no. I mean, I liked the guy. We were good friends, and I never felt like I would want to hurt him. So it's like, of course I would do that. But normally I'm a sarcastic guy, and we trade barbs and quips all day, and it's fun. But being that direct, like saying to somebody, "I need a hug," or just saying, "Be nice to me today because I'm having a hard day," like that small thing, that's an exceptional piece of advice.
Yes,
Keeping
it
stuff in.
totally is. It helps so much. I don't think everybody understands like how much it really, really does help to just go up to somebody and say, "I really need a hug today." I think you have done that to me one time. I came into work and you were like, "I'm feeling angry. Tell me something positive." And I do, because I know that it helps you.
Yeah, you're one of the few people I could actually go to, or you'd be like completely bulletproof when it comes to,
Absolutely.
okay, I'm having a bad day, and we got to put on a show, we got to figure this out, and I will go out and perform like a monkey, because I would say about 9 times out of 10 I was pretty good at that. I
I
could
will
just
be your cheerleader because I know if I am your cheerleader, you will be my cheerleader.
see, it's like karma. So it's this idea of you pay in, you get something back eventually. I will say this though, I have found in the course of being a hyper person with lots of different thoughts at one given time, and a guy who can speak very very quickly and who is seriously intense, there is a thing as over communication. I have done it a billion times, and I've learned that sometimes keeping a thought in, especially in a relationship, is probably the best way to go, because I think I'm problem solving, and all that does is creates new problems. So I recommend folks try not to criticize too often.
Yes, that's very true. If it's something that drives you nuts, but it's something that your human naturally does, then maybe you just need to deal with it. You'll get used to it. But if it's something that is really, really ticking you off and, it never really happens that often, then tell them how you feel.
I'm just thinking about the over communication aspect. This is you reminded me of another book I read. Same says very similar stuff of whose problem is it, whose quirk is it. So like if I don't like that the dishes are next to the sink as opposed to in the sink, it's not really the other person's problem. That's my
I
problem.
hate that.
I don't like it either, but that doesn't mean I should be yelling about it. It's like just take care. It takes me 22 seconds. Get up and do it. Sometimes these little things of if you can just kind of swallow your like being angry, that's me anyway, just trying to go, okay, what can I do now? If I just did this myself, it'll be over and nobody's unhappy. It's over and it's done. Simple things like that. Let's see.
There was
Few
one
things.
thing that I read about one time,
What's
and I
that?
think that it really helps me whenever I actually remember to do it. If you ever feel angry, don't say "I am angry" because that means that you're owning the emotion. Say that you feel angry. So as opposed to I am angry. You say I feel angry. It doesn't make you feel as angry to say I feel angry as it does to say I am angry, if that makes any sense.
It makes sense to me. It's about you talking about identification with a
Yes.
concept. It was one of these meditations I was listening to. I use an app called Buddhify 2. It's I think it's like a $3 app, and it's got a bunch of guided meditations. And the reason why I like it is because my brain doesn't really turn off. A guided meditation is way easier for me to tune into than quiet your mind, Iyaz, because I am not going to do it. So I'm listening along to this, and one of the concepts was non-identification. This idea
Mhm.
of think of yourself as the sky and your emotion as the weather. The weather will move on. You are still the sky. And I was just like,
Interesting.
wow, okay, so I'm no longer identifying with the feeling as myself. So in other words, you don't read any of this stuff. You don't listen to guided meditations. You don't listen to audiobooks about this stuff. Yet you have all the keys and tricks in your head already. You have some kind of giant life hack.
No, that
You
doesn't
must
mean that I'm always happy. It
always
definitely
have.
doesn't mean that I'm always getting away with being optimistic and peppy and, my cheerleader self. There are times when I've broken down and I've cried because, somebody said something about me online that really hurt, or because I lost a friend or whatever. And a lot of times, when those kind of things happen, it really helps me to just take a moment for myself and to sit back and relax and just reminisce a little bit.
Just want to share one more story before we get the heck out of here. I was thinking a while ago, I was talking to a friend of mine. Uh, I don't know if you know him, but anyway, this guy, he had left a position somewhere else, and he had this juicy story as far as I know. He was going to tell me about it. Like, okay, this is why this situation happened and all this other stuff. And I was like, okay, cool. Let's talk about it one day. And the first day came by and it kind of like went by the wayside. And then eventually I had my opportunity. And this is over the course of months that these events happened. So I had been reading a lot of different things. And this, one of the books I was reading said something like, do not engage in idle talk. And that's all about not gossiping. And when I had the opportunity one on one to talk to this person and go, what happened? Tell me the juicy story. I just didn't feel like doing it. And I felt so much better after it that this idea of not engaging in gossip actually made me feel good. I had never thought of that. It's sometimes, I like a juicy story. I mean, who doesn't? I mean, it's the basis of many, many magazines and publications and blogs and whatever the heck you want to say. Have you found yourself engaging in too much gossip? And if you do, what do you do about it?
I have. Yeah. I've been a gossiper before. I'm sure you've
So
heard some of my gossip before, but
we swap
uh
gossip.
recently I've taken a different approach to it, and this is like in the past few months, and it's made me a little bit happier when I go to certain workplaces that upset me. So what I do is say, well, how would I feel if that person was talking behind my back? And I know a lot of people say that. And I know sometimes you think that you'll feel better if you talk about them behind their back, but it really doesn't help. It just spurs more anger in that workplace, or it makes you more of a pessimist when it comes to your job, whatever it might be. Um, yeah, it was hard. It was very hard for me to get to the point where I stopped gossiping as much as I used to, being a girl and all. But there was one time I can tell you about this because it was gossip about me that I ended up hearing about. Uh, there was a time when I went to work and one of my girlfriends pulled me aside and said, "Hey, so and so was talking about you, talking bad about you to the CEO. He was saying, you're no good at this thing and you're not making any money for the network or something like that." So when I heard that from her, I thought to myself, well, first off, how does she know that this happened? Could it just be a lie? Second of all, why would she be saying this to me? Does she want to hurt me in some way? And third, why? And when you ask yourself those questions, it really doesn't make any sense for them to be starting gossip about you unless it's, on some occasions it's true or on some occasions it's false. So if it ends up being something that's true, go to the source. If you feel like confronting them, do it. Go to them and say, "Hey, I heard that you said this thing about me. I just want to understand why you said it and if there's any truth behind it. Hopefully they don't lie to you, but if they are true to you, if they're a mature adult, then they'll discuss it with you and then hopefully that'll solve the problem. It doesn't do any good to go back around their back and say something bad behind them. It just kind of it creates this never-ending circle of anger and tension in your workplace, and nobody needs that because then the entire place just blows up.
Yeah, it creates like this loop of
Yeah.
just trouble. It's just if you can
Well,
end
so
up
and so said, well, really? Because I heard so and so said this. It just happens over and over again.
it always seems very high school childish to me. And it's like, okay, that's enough of that.
Yes.
Old. I mean, we all go through it, and it's small things that you kind of grew up with. But when you find out you start disassociating yourself from that behavior, I think it helps out. It's helped me out. And by the way, again, if you want to totally de-stress, stop looking for an apartment like I did. It totally helps.
Stop planning a wedding like I am.
Yeah, exactly. So you'll end that soon, and that will be a
Well,
huge relief when everything goes off
it
as
will.
planned.
And I just need to remember that, no wedding is ever perfect. I know that things are going to go wrong, and hopefully my guests won't know the difference.
Events will unfold and people will enjoy. That's the real
Yep.
thing. The only person, it's almost like when you're doing a play, if you let on that you forgot your
Yes.
line, that's the only time that anyone knows that. All you have to do is
That's
just kind
exactly
of roll with
it. Oh my God, that's so true. Yeah, that happened to me one time in a play where I forgot my next line and I had to improv it. And afterwards, my own director didn't even notice.
That's
I
good.
was
That's
like,
when you
yes,
can pull it. So
score.
it's now time for odd promotion time. Shannon Morse, if people wanted to find you online, they wanted to get to know your works, or they just wanted to know your insights, where should they look for you?
Let's see. You can find me on Twitter at Snubs, SNUBS. And you can also find me on hak5.org with Hack5, Discovery Digital Media, which is over at revision3.com/techzilla, TEKZILLA, and twit.tv/C101. That's my programming show I do with Father Robert Balaser. So those three places are the best places to go.
All the places online. You can always find Snubs everywhere. I just do a quick search or just Twitter.
go to
I
my
think Twitter
Twitter.
usually, you can find everything on Twitter there. So if all those websites, I've seen them. I've been online. I have multiple tabs open. I've researched you.
That's
Not
creepy.
Not really. Right now, I have Google Calendar, a CMS open, and AT&T acquiring DirecTV for $50 billion. So
Oh no.
it happened. Anyway, so if you have any questions, you've got comments, concerns, you've got your own tales of what it takes to become happy, or you're like, listen, I listen to you guys and I'm getting nothing out of this, and I need to know how to handle something like this. Another problem, just let me know. You can just shoot me an email
Smile.
right now. Smiling does help. I will say that. Even if you're having a bad day, smiling and whistling. Hard to
I've
whistle.
told you to smile before. I've said, Iyaz, you're not smiling enough on camera. Smile. So
Yeah,
I'd sit behind the camera and go like this. Iyaz.
Yeah, so if you if you watch Know How, if you go from like episode 1 to like I don't know 70 something, you'll see me increasingly smile as it's going along. It's because Shannon's getting bigger and bigger. It was like by the end of the run, it was like what, an 18-foot head you were carrying around with a smile. True story.
Yeah, pretty much.
Anyway, yeah, so if you've got any questions, you can always shoot me an email, iyazaktar@gmail.com. If you don't know how to spell that, then look up. It's right there. If you're not watching the video version of this, you can get a video version of this. gfqnetwork.com. You got video subscription links. You got audio subscription links. If you don't want to subscribe, you don't have to. You can just go around the site, go find any episode you want to find. We have guests on from time to time. We've had a great set of guests recently, and finding out more about what keeps them driven and keeps them happy while they're trying to succeed, I think has been very enlightening to me anyway. So thanks again, Shannon, for being on and opening up to the audience. And if you see people outside, be nice to them, because we're all going through the same stuff. We're all going through this, a lot of stress. So just pretend like everything's okay.
Very
And that's
true.
all I've got to say. So I'll see everybody in the next time. And I don't know when. If I'm not back for next week, happy Memorial Day. So long.